activity was what Mr. Curtis typically sent in email traffic and other correspondence to Senator Wicker's office.
All right. The off-white granular substance that was contained in the Senator Wicker's, the letter to Senator Wicker, were field tests and other tests conducted on that substance?
Yes, sir. Let me go back real quick. At 3 o'clock, Capitol Police began focusing on Mr. Curtis, and they decided to query the other congressional members from Mississippi, and Representative Nunley's office advised Ms. Mabel Murphy, I may be saying her name incorrectly, advised they also have had some correspondence with Mr. Curtis and described the correspondence as I don't know. The best way to say not disturbing, but it was along the same lines. Talking.
I'll stop right here to state for the record, Miss Mabel Murphy is connected to the North Mississippi Medical Center in Tupelo, Mississippi, where I worked for 2 years and maintained 150,000 square feet of tile floor in the morgue, radiology, ER, and the third floor Heart Institute. From December of 1999, I worked 2 years and was a role model employee, was written up in the newsletters as a role model employee, and I was asked to speak as a guest speaker right before Dr. Patch Adams. I believe that was in December of 1999. And I have had telephone conversations with Dr. Patch Adams, and he is fully aware of the black market body part organ industry. And he sympathizes with what's happened to me as a whistleblower and activist. Just wanted to state for the record, Miss Murphy was very hostile with me on the telephone when I began trying to get a sponsor for my House Bill Resolution 6631 to regulate bone, tissue, and organ harvesting in the state of Mississippi. No one would help me. Roger Wicker would not help me. Steve Holland would not help me. Alan Nunley would not help me. I went to every politician in the entire state of Mississippi and Washington and could not get this life-saving House Bill Resolution even introduced into Congress. They all read it, and some of them said, "Great job. Wow. Did anyone help you with this? What's your education? This is amazing. Wow." From doctors to lawyers to state senators to congressmen. Giving me praise. But now look what happened. Let's get back to this court hearing. April the 19th, 2013.
About some maybe conspiracy theories and whistleblowing type activities.
Anti-government?
I haven't read them myself, so I don't want to say that.
I don't want to characterize them. That's fair enough.
Okay. And as far as the field test, so the way the process works is when a suspicious powder is identified, a presumptive field screening is conducted. And we call it a presumptive field screening because of issues that sometimes occur with those things. They conducted 4 that day. The first one tested positive, presumptively tested.
Back to Dr. Mabel Murphy. She is on the board of directors at the North Mississippi Medical Center when this was taking place.
Positive for ricin. The second one was inconclusive, and the third and fourth, from my understanding, also tested positive for ricin. Subsequently, that letter and that material has been moved to the National, I want to make sure I get this right, the National Bioforensics Analysis Center in Frederick, Maryland, where it has preliminarily, using scientific testing, has preliminarily tested positive for ricin.
Do you have are they conducting further tests on it?
Yes, sir. A preliminary test means that, I know we're in court, I don't want to say don't quote me on this, but a preliminary test means they've done initial baseline testing using scientific equipment. A full battery test is being conducted, and it usually takes several days for those results to come back. But at this time, it is preliminary tested positive for ricin. Yes, sir.
Do they consider it to contain ricin?
Right now, yes, sir. Otherwise we wouldn't have a hazmat team up in Corinth.
Okay. Let's talk about ricin. What is it? Well, you're the weapons of mass destruction point of contact person with the FBI in the entire state of Mississippi, and I assume you've been other places as well.
Yes, sir.
With your skills. Is ricin and biological toxins like that, are those considered weapons of mass destruction?
Yes, it is categorized in Title 18, 2332 alpha. A biotoxin is considered a weapon of mass destruction. Ricin is a highly deadly substance, very potent. It is derived from the castor bean through a process. Different processes. Obviously, if a state-level government could probably process it to a more weaponized form. We've had a case here in Mississippi where a husband and wife produced ricin in an effort to acquire inheritance money from mom and dad. So it derives from the castor plant, which is used throughout the South and other places as an ornamental plant. It's a bean that comes from there. It has the same resemblance as a pinto bean, a little bit darker, a little bit smaller.
Okay. What does the toxin? How does it get into your system?
There's several ways you can get into your system. The primary method of entry is either ingestion, inhalation, or absorption. You can be injected by it, injected with it. That was evident with the Soviets. Actually committed an assassination using it back in, I think, their 70s or the 80s. But there's several ways. Again, it's very difficult for it to get through your pores. It's a very large molecule, from what I understand. And I will caveat by saying I call the very smart people at FBI laboratory to give me information on the science side of it. I'm not a scientist, and nor do I want to be one. But there's definitely different methods. Inhaling it, ingesting it, I would say were your two primary routes of entry, sir.
Do you? I don't want to get into the process by which it's made, but it has no commercial value. I mean, it's not manufactured by drug companies and sold for medical reasons.
Actually, there's only right now, and I did check this research with one of our biologists back in the laboratory division. Ricin is being looked at for potential treatment for some types of cancer. However, outside that, there are no legitimate reasons for ricin to exist. Right? There's no legitimate applications for ricin outside of that research that's being conducted.
And only if you know this, because we've all been as busy as we can be. I assume it's made black market style, much like methamphetamine or back in the day moonshine whiskey.
You absolutely could have what we would consider a clandestine laboratory to manufacture ricin. The primary ingredient, and I'm just going to give the primary, is the castor bean. There's additional, elements you need to process. However, you can Google it on the internet and come up with how to process ricin. It may not be a weaponized form like a state government, but what I would consider maybe a poor form, it's still deadly.
When you say Google it, it's readily available on the internet?
I have it on my desktop. I found it on the internet. You can go to the gun show and buy books that discuss the manufacturing of this. Both domestic terror and international terror groups have posted literature on the internet about the manufacturing and the deployment of ricin. And it's evident by the case we've had in the Southern District several years ago. Sir.
Even though you mentioned this was not the most militarized or refined form of it, is it any less deadly if ingested?
I would be remiss to say if it's more deadly or less deadly than maybe let's say a hostile foreign government producing it. I would say it still has the properties to cause death. Yes, sir.
Is there any antidote?
There's no antidote.
So, what do they do for you? What does it do to you? And what do they do?
They give you, they basically make you comfortable and you pass away. and obviously that depends on the level of toxicity of that particular ricin, as well as how much you've ingested or absorbed or inhaled. There's various factors that play into that, but I'll use I believe the individual's name was Markov case. That was a weaponized form. It got inside him. There was no way to treat it. No antidote, no vaccination for it.
Okay, now let's go back to the Capitol Police have identified a potential subject, Paul Kevin Curtis.
Yes, sir.
Of the state of Mississippi, any particular city, region they'd identified?
What we understood, and we had a Paul Kevin Curtis, and originally the focus was in the Tupelo, Boonville area because of some previous addresses. And obviously we had the Memphis postmark on the letters, so we were cross-checking things from there. But given the correspondence with the Mississippi delegations, the members of the Mississippi delegation at the U.S. Capitol, we put him in northern Mississippi.
All right. Did you try to, at that point, are you trying to research to locate where Paul Kevin Curtis is, or are you out actively looking after the referral from the Capitol Police?
I'm sorry, can you rephrase?
That's a horrible question. The Capitol Police referred to you the Wicker letter, right?
Yes, sir.
We didn't learn the second and the third letter until later on.
That's correct, yes, sir.
So after receiving the referral from the Capitol Police, are you still in Jackson researching, trying to locate a Paul Kevin Curtis, or are you, and when I say you, I mean collectively,
yes,
the whole team, or are people in the field looking for it?
At that time, we are still, I guess I would call it our administrative phase. We were trying to, one, nail down the research that was conducted and verify it on our own. So I was in Jackson with my team, and my supervisor, and we were working with our Memphis division. What we understood was the Capitol Police were flying into the Memphis division to meet with their WMD coordinator to talk about how do we find out where this guy is so we can, the Capitol Police was actually going to look for him first. And then the FBI got involved as we began to develop additional details and learn about an additional letter, sure.
Okay. The second letter that you learned of, who was the addressee of that letter, and how was it discovered?
The second letter was addressed to President Barack Obama, the current President of the United States of America. We learned of it through our headquarters. It's my understanding that letter was received at the White House mail processing facility. I do not know its location. I believe it is in Maryland as well. And at that time, they also identified, and I believe I have a copy of that one as well, they identified the same yellow paper that was in the Wicker letter with the same, I shouldn't say the same, a granular substance that appeared the same as the Wicker letter, and similar verbiage in the letter addressed to the president.
You've got the two in front of you, don't you?
Yes, sir.
You said similar verbiage. It's identical, isn't it?
It's identical, yes, sir. And it's a carbon copy, including the lowercase I that we caught in our stuff.
Let's see. Did you have a photograph of the envelope of the, I hate to use the acronym, we're supposed to say POTUS, but the President of the United States?
This is it, yes, sir.
Before we move any further on the letter to the President of the United States, Mabel, I remember Mabel's last name, that works for Senator Nunley.
Murphy.
Do you recall being, I know you didn't talk to her directly, somebody else did, and they told you what she said. Did she characterize Paul Kevin Curtis's, how she felt about him?
Yes, sir. She characterized him as being nuts. That's what I wrote on my notes there.
Your Honor, I've marked the envelope to the President, the photograph of the envelope of the letter to the President of the United States is 2A, and the letter itself with the off-white granular substance in the bottom right-hand corner as 2B. And Mr. Grant, are those true and exact pictures of the envelope?
Yes, sir.
To the President of the United States and the letter itself?
Yes, as they were provided me, yes, they are. It's what I know.
And you relied on somebody else that saw that and took that picture. You haven't seen the original.
That's correct.
And is that, as best you can tell, and as best it's been described to you, is that off-white granular substance down in the bottom right-hand corner consistent or similar to the substance in the Wicker letter?
Yes, sir.
Now, was that substance field tested, and were other tests conducted on it?
Yes, sir. It was a presumptive field test was conducted. It tested positive for ricin. That letter and material was subsequently moved to MBFAC, the National Bioforensic. I always get this wrong. The National Bioforensic Analysis Center in Frederick, Maryland, and is subsequently preliminary tested positive for ricin. Yes, sir.
And like the substance in the Senator Wicker letter, it's being tested for.
Yes, additional testing, as I stated before, it's several days to get there's multiple tests that are going on, but with the preliminary, we're coming back as ricin.
And do those experts consider that ricin?
At this time, yes, sir.
All right, the 2B, which is the letter itself, and I believe you previously testified, they're identical.
Yes, sir.
In font, style, grammar, centering. Does it, like the other, contain the passage, "I am KC and approve this message"?
It does, yes, sir.
And are there references to the identical reference to the missing pieces?
Yes, sir.
Right. Someone must die?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to get back to another passage in just a moment. All right. All right, now we have, when was that letter discovered in relation to how many days after the Wicker letter was discovered?
It's my understanding, it was discovered a couple hours after the Wicker letter. It's postmarked the exact same date out of Memphis on April 8, 2013. The President Barack Hussein Obama letter was postmarked in Memphis, Tennessee, as well as the letter to Senator Wicker. Same date, same location.
Now we have a threat on the President of the United States. What's going on?
The United States Secret Service is moving into action. They have to ensure the President is safe. The good thing, the way the mail works, it would have been very difficult for the President to actually handle this. But this letter did pose a threat to the mail workers at that processing facility.
Okay. Let's cover let's stay with the letters for a moment. There was a third letter discovered.
Yes, sir.
That's right. And who was that letter addressed to?
That letter was addressed to Judge Sadie Holland, the Justice Court in Tupelo, Mississippi.
And do you have a photograph of the envelope and the contents?
I do have a photograph of the envelope. You may not be able to see the granular white substance, or I shouldn't say white, the granular substance inside the bag. Actually, you can see some of it up in the corner. Yeah, yes, sir.
And has it been described to you as a off-white granular substance consistent with or similar to the substances found in the other two letters?
Absolutely, sir. I actually physically held this one in my hand in front of the U.S. Attorney's office. So.
And is the letter itself that yellow, same, does it have the same font, style, lowercase I, same quotes?
Yes, sir. Exact same.
All three of those letters, the envelopes, did they bear postage?
They did, yes, sir.
And were they, describe the stamps.
Well, the stamps all were American flag stamps. On two of them, below the American flag, it says the word equality. That was the Senator Wicker and the Judge Holland letters. I'm going to make sure I'm saying this right. I'm sorry. Two of them say justice. It's an American flag stamp that says justice. It's a self-adhesive stamp that says justice, and those were to President Barack Obama and to Judge Sadie Holland. The self-adhesive stamp with the American flag to Senator Wicker had the equality underneath it.
Okay. All American flags, all
yes, sir.
Same basic stamp.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All three letters you testified were postmarked in Memphis, Tennessee.
That's correct, sir.
All right. What? I know you said that the President Obama's letter and Senator Wicker's letter was postmarked on the 10th of April?
All three were postmarked on 8 April 2013.
8 April.
Yes, sir.
And Memphis, Tennessee.
That's correct.
All right. Have you learned since then about mail that is deposited in the Northern District of Mississippi for particular northern counties, even though it's deposited in mail receptacles in Mississippi? Do you know where it all goes?
Yeah, yes, sir. From information I received from the United States Postal Inspection Service, or it's either them or the U.S. Postal Service, I think it was the Inspection Service, advised that there's numerous counties along the northern edge of the state of Mississippi. When their mail is collected, it is processed through the mail handling facility in Memphis. Therefore, it would be canceled out, I guess is the best term to call it. It would be canceled and marked as being processed out of Memphis, Tennessee.
All right, and I forgot to ask this question. The substance in Ms. Holland's letter, was it tested?
It was. Judge Holland's letter is a little bit different from the other two, simply because Judge Holland's letter was delivered to Judge Holland's offices in Tupelo on or about April 10th, 2013, and an administrative staff person contacted the sheriff's office and turned the letter and the material in a Ziploc bag over to the sheriff's office.
I'd like to stop the audio there. Everett Dusky, the man who sent the Ryson letters and framed me, was a long-term enemy, rival of Steve Holland, son of Judge Sadie Holland. Sadie Holland has passed away as of a few months ago. Rest in peace. And they also own three of the largest funeral home and crematories in the state of Mississippi. There is a connection. Body parts, organ harvesting, funeral homes, politicians, karate instructor running against Steve Holland, the Mississippi Undertaker. Steve Holland often boasted and called himself the Mississippi Undertaker with great pride, and he has often talked about the amount of money he has made in the funeral business, in crematory business. These are facts. This is published in GQ magazine, the world's leading men's fashion magazine. The October issue, 2013, my story made the cover. So keep in mind, Dr. Mabel Murphy, connected to the CEO, Dr. Jeff Barber, who was terminated shortly after I exposed what I discovered in the refrigerator in December of 1999, and filed a lawsuit after they terminated me and threw me out in handcuffs and banned me for life for asking that one question. So I went from a role model employee, loved by every doctor, everyone in the hospital, thousands of people written up in the newsletters, praising me, asking me to speak at the 17th Annual Caring Conference. Lena Thompson, head RN, had been there 20 years. She had heard about me uplifting people, my musical abilities, and I was asked to be a guest speaker. I was literally thrown out and banned for life in handcuffs after asking, what do you all do with severed heads and arms, legs, and feet wrapped in plastic in the morgue refrigerator? No cooler. Every time they put this in print, someone says cooler, misquote. It was an upright Genair refrigerator in the morgue, unlocked.
Sheriff, once the Senator Wicker and the President Obama letters came into the media and our investigations were going on, one of our task force officers assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force was approached by a member of the Lee County Sheriff's Office saying that we potentially have a similar letter. Upon viewing it, they contacted me, and I said, and I think I was sitting in your office at the time, sir. They contacted me, and I asked for them to overpack it in plastic to secure it, and that we would move a hazmat team, the 47th Civil Support Team from the Mississippi National Guard, in to field test it, sample it, and overpack it for shipment for evidence purposes.
Okay. And do you have those photographs of Miss Holland?
I do. And our photographs are a little different because I wanted to make sure we had the thing there.
For the record, I have marked Government Exhibit 3A, the photograph of the envelope. Solid, and 3B is the contents of the letter, and a little bit of the subject. Holland. Right, and with them through this, just ask you a bunch of questions. Are those true and exact copies, or has it been reported to you that those are true and exact copies of photographs taken of the Holland envelope and Holland letter and contents?
Yes, sir. These are photographs taken by the 47th Civil Support Team and emailed directly to me.
Have there been any further tests and further tests on it?
Yes, sir. The 47th Civil Support Team conducted a presumptive field screening test, tested positive for ricin. This letter was subsequently returned to the National Bioforensic Analysis Center in Frederick, Maryland via FBI aircraft, where it has preliminary tested for ricin.
And like the others, it's going to be tested
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
More thoroughly. Do they, like the others, consider it to be ricin, at least at this point?
They do, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. If you could describe the efforts to set up surveillance on residences that you guys had identified. Where were they, and how did you or why did you consider them to be places that Paul Kevin Curtis may have lived in or lived at?
Yes, sir. Based on research conducted both by the FBI and the U.S. Capitol Police, the Memphis division of the FBI and the Jackson division of the FBI decided to initiate physical surveillance on 2 locations. And I'm not going to give you the exact addresses because I'm going to get them wrong, but I know one was in Boonville and one was in Tupelo. The Boonville address was a former address of Mr. Curtis, as well as the Tupelo address. We now know he didn't reside there, but we initiated that surveillance in an attempt to identify him.
And did you did anyone see him, lay eyes on him at either of those 2 residences?
No, sir. No, not during that surveillance.
Okay. The letter, the envelope of the letter to Senator Wicker and the envelope on the letter of President Obama's, were there indentations, handwritten indentations on the outside of those envelopes?
Yes, yes, sir. Actually, I'm
probably not naked with the visible eye that you couldn't read what it said, but there are obviously some indentations that somebody knows.
Yes, sir. And in indentations, what appears is an individual had an envelope on top of another envelope, and you can see as they were writing on the first envelope, they were pressing through to the envelope below it, which left an indentation. There was no ink there, but the paper for the envelope was pressed. We asked that some examiners, some forensic examiners, conduct a test, and they were able, and I believe they used some type of light technology. They were able to identify both a Tupelo address and a Boonville address.
And were those addresses that I guess they put it under some kind of light or something,
yes,
and they could read it. But were those addresses the same as the addresses or addresses associated with Paul Kevin Curtis?
Yes, sir. The Boonville address, and I believe it's Inez, either 107 or 109, it was specifically, it was a Boonville address, and we were able to trace that address back to Mr. Curtis. The Tupelo address was a Milford, and on the envelope, as the results came back, it was